The sun hung heavy and golden over Lagos that afternoon, spilling brightness onto the city so that even the dust seemed illuminated. It was an ordinary weekday, the kind when mothers shuffle hurrying children, vendors call out deals, and tired office workers dream of their escape as they file in and out of packed supermarkets. On this stretch of bustling roadside, the crowd outside the Super Save supermarket moved in its familiar choreography. Until, without warning, time itself appeared to shudder and hold its breath. Subscribe and hit like. Our powerful stories add years to your life. Join our Story Lovers Club and let us know in the comments, where are you listening from? A car, impossibly sleek and shimmering with understated luxury, rolled up to the curb. The Bentley Sleek. The kind of car most Lagosians had only glimpsed in glossy international magazines, or perhaps parked in the distant lots of government offices or foreign embassies. The air changed. Conversations stilled mid-word, heads turned, street hawkers paused as if the mere hum of the Bentley's engine had silenced their hustle. It was as if a movie camera had swept in and called action, freezing the crowd into awaiting mannequins. All of them watched, pupils wide, as the car door lifted with polite hydraulics. Out stepped a woman whose presence seemed to ripple into the city air. Not just tall, but regal. Not just radiant, but commanding. The lines of her cream-colored jumpsuit sculpted dignity and power. Her shoes, magnificent heels that clicked like a judge's gavel, marked her arrival with each step. Sunlight snapped off her sunglasses, hiding her eyes but somehow magnifying her aura. She was instantly unforgettable. And yet, for the Lagos crowd, she needed no introduction. Monica Williams. Some whispered her name. Some pointed, their faces alight with fascination and recognition. Monica was no stranger to them. She was a living legend, the Monica Williams, whose face graced Forbes Africa, whose interviews were replayed across televisions in tiny villages and sparkling penthouses alike. Monica Williams, billionaire tech mogul, celebrated genius, visionary CEO and founder of MTech, Africa's trailblazing software giant. She carried in her stride the dreams parents whispered over their daughters at bedtime, the ambitions of young coders hacking away in internet cafes, the hopes of every woman who'd ever been told no and refused to listen. Yet Monica wasn't here for glamour or attention. Not today. She didn't stride toward the aisles of imported wines or pause for selfies. Instead, she veered purposefully and shockingly toward a forgotten figure slumped beside a stack of empty crates, almost blending into the dusty sidewalk itself. As if drawn by something only she could see, Monica stopped before a homeless man, making the crowd collectively gasp and lean forward in disbelief. He was the kind of man people passed every day without pause, just another shadow among the swirl and rush of city life. His coat, patched and threadbare, hung off him in a heavy tangle of brown. Beneath, a faded green shirt clung to his thin chest, a shirt that had not smelled fresh soap in many weeks. His beard was wild, unkempt, sprawling down his neck in chaotic knots. His hair, just as untamed, escaped in every direction. In one shaking hand, he held onto a ragged black bag that seemed no one, and especially no one who looked like Monica, had ever approached him with anything beyond discomfort or avoidance. Today, though, he found not pity in Monica's face, but something softer, something that for a moment made him forget the crowd. She bent slightly, offering a gentle smile. "My name is Monica," she said, and her voice carried an unexpected kindness that cut through the hum of afternoon traffic. For a moment, the man blinked, as if waiting to wake up. Then, in a voice rusty from silence, he replied, Jacob UCHE." To the crowd, it was already a scene from a story nobody would believe. Yet Monica took it further. She spoke with a calm certainty, her words wrapped in both vulnerability and steel. "I've seen you here," she began, his name lingering thoughtfully on her lips. "You talk like a scholar. You speak about data and business as if you've walked the halls of that world." Her tone was sincere, not patronizing. She leaned in just a fraction, letting earnest warmth fill the air between them. "I don't know your story or where you're from," Monica said. "I just believe, deeply, that you only need a second chance. Maybe today I can be the person who gives it to you." The crowd rippled, jaws slack, as Monica's heartbeat thundered in her chest. "So I'm going to do something crazy," she continued, voice threading through the moment. "Will you marry me?" The world seemed to tilt. Conversation ground to a halt. Even the city's ever-present background noise faded as everyone strained to catch her words. Jacob's mouth fell open in pure shock, his mind racing through disbelief and wonder. Every assumption collapsed in an instant. Jacob gazed at Monica, barely able to comprehend what he was hearing. How could someone who embodied everything the world celebrated, wealth, intellect, grace, possibly claim to see him, to want him, to offer him this impossible hope? His lips quivered as he shook his head, trying to process. The crowd pressed further, some ready to laugh, others ready to capture every moment on their phones. But Jacob, his voice emerging with the timidity of a man who had tasted both tragedy and scorn, finally spoke. "If you really mean that," he said slowly, carefully weighing the magnitude of the challenge, "go inside that supermarket, buy a ring, come out. Kneel down and ask me again, like you mean it." Gasps split the gathering into chaos. Some wondered if he was mad, refusing a billionaire's proposal. Who could reject someone as legendary as Monica Williams? Sidelong glances danced through the crowd, questions buzzed, but Monica stayed composed. She did not flinch. She did not retreat. She simply turned, walked calmly into Super Save, and vanished through the sliding doors. 5 minutes later, she emerged, this time, not only with resolve, but with a ring in her hand that flashed brighter than the midday sun. It was a diamond, exquisite, dazzling and worth more than most homes on that block. There was no hesitation. On that dusty pavement, surrounded by stunned strangers, Monica Williams, the billionaire tech queen, bent her knee, looking steadily up at Jacob, whose world had stopped turning so many years before. "Jacob UCHE," Monica said, her voice trembling with truth. "Will you marry me?" Jacob froze, emotions hammering through his chest. Filming began. Some in the crowd wept, others cheered, and cars slowed, their drivers craning for a glimpse. One woman put her hand to her head in stunned disbelief. Jacob looked down at Monica, a stunning woman who seemed to have everything, but who clearly saw something powerful in him. In his filth, in his pain, in the shadows of his life, she saw hope. And so, choking back tears, Jacob nodded, barely trusting his own voice. "Yes," he whispered. Monica smiled gently and slid the ring onto Jacob's unwashed finger. He stared at it, as if by sheer force of will, he could believe in miracles again. "Now get in the car," Monica urged, her tone gentle but firm. Jacob hesitated, glancing nervously down at his muddy trousers, the smell of his body, the shame etched into his nails and soul. "I'll stain your seat," he mumbled. "I don't care," Monica replied, the words slicing through every barrier Jacob had built up over years on the street. The crowd parted like sea walls as he rose from the pavement, a posture more like a resurrection than an invitation. Monica opened the door. Jacob stepped into the Bentley, leaving behind the only existence he'd known for so long. As the car hummed away, even he didn't realize that everything was about to change. For Jacob UCHE, the true story was only just beginning. Inside the Bentley, as Monica steered toward the heart of Victoria Island, the city sparkled outside in a kaleidoscope of light. Jacob sat rigid in the passenger seat, clutching his battered bag like a lifeline, his eyes darting between the woman beside him and the extraordinary tableau unfolding ahead. It all felt surreal. Mere hours ago, he was invisible, a ghost in rags, unseen and untouched. Now, he was engaged to the most admired woman in Nigeria. Yet still, tears did not come. Not yet. Monica glanced his way, noting the years of hardship that had carved themselves into his gaze. His eyes were red, not yet from emotion, but from grit, survival, the chronic sting of dust and heat. Monica wanted to ask everything, but she sensed instinctively that first, she owed him dignity. "We're making a quick stop," Monica said softly as she navigated the maze of traffic. Jacob simply nodded, his mind reeling. Monica parked outside a luxury grooming studio. The sign above the marble entrance gleamed, Kingsman Barber Spa. Inside, the world was different. Marble floors, gold-rimmed mirrors, counters of polished mahogany. A man in a crisp white shirt opened the door with a bow, but paused as he registered Jacob's disheveled presence. Monica stepped forward first and spoke with authority. "He's with me." That was all the staff needed to hear. They hesitated for a brief moment, but Monica's reputation unlocked respect and swift obedience. She turned to Jacob and smiled again. "Let them clean you up. I'll wait." For the next hour, Jacob sat in the capacious barber chair, barely moving as skilled hands snipped and washed, shaved and scrubbed away the accumulated years of dirt and suffering. His beard, so long a part of his armor against the world, fell away in gentle chunks. His thick, unruly hair surrendered to expert blades and brushes, reshaped until it looked like it belonged on the cover of a fashion magazine. At last, they handed him a mirror. For the first time in years, Jacob studied his own face. The change was greater than he could comprehend. His jawline was sharp, his cheeks high, his eyes dark, tired, but unmistakably intelligent, now shimmered with a wary hope. He ran his fingertips over his skin, blinking again and again in disbelief. "Sir, your clothes," offered one of the stylists, presenting a tailored white shirt, black trousers, polished loafers. Jacob hesitated only a moment, then entered the changing room, shedding the remnants of his old life. When he emerged, Monica stood up so suddenly she gasped. Standing before her, in place of the scruffy, broken man she had knelt before, was someone transformed, someone she had always sensed, but never truly pictured. Jacob's transformation was not just physical, it was profoundly cinematic, almost mythical. For Monica, seeing him now, she realized she had only ever seen him through the lens of his true potential. Powerful, dignified, whole. She smiled, eyes wet with emotion. "Now that's the man I saw." Jacob's throat constricted, a tightened coil of possibility and nerves. "I feel like I just came back to life." Monica replied softly, "You haven't seen anything yet." They left together, stepping back into the Bentley, ready to begin a story that would change both of their lives forever. When Monica and Jacob stepped out onto Victoria Island, it was as if the city itself leaned in closer to listen. The late afternoon light danced across the city's glass towers, painting them gold. Yet the world outside the car had already begun to change. Word spread like wildfire by Instagram stories, WhatsApp groups, and hurried, excited conversations. The billionaire Monica Williams with an unknown man? The details rippled through every cafe, office, barbershop, and market. Conjecture ran fierce, but none of the rumors guessed the truth. Monica led Jacob up the grand steps of one of the island's most exclusive hotels. Employees, attuned to important guests, straightened their jackets and smoothed their ties. Monica barely noticed. She was focused on Jacob, whose nerves made his hands shake, despite the confidence his new clothing gifted him. The lobby's grandeur, gleaming marble, fragrant lilies, the undertone of classical piano, was overwhelming after years of the street's chaos. Jacob blinked repeatedly, every sense overloaded by comfort. Up in the penthouse, Monica handed Jacob a tablet, her fingers brushing his with casual intimacy. "Your world starts here," she said gently. "I'd like to know you, the real you, but only if you're comfortable." Jacob sat solemn, both grateful and guarded. He spoke little, relieved only by the sound of running water in the ensuite. Behind the bathroom door, as warm water poured over him, Jacob allowed the first tears to fall. Tears that felt strange, new, and most of all, safe. The potent symbol of this moment. The penthouse and the shower, the soft bathrobes and room service, wasn't lost on Monica. She sat at the window, watching Lagos come to life below, feeling the exquisite, transformative weight of possibility. By evening, a tentative trust had begun to grow between Monica and Jacob. Over a quiet dinner, expensive yet unpretentious, she dared to ask, "Tell me what happened." "Tell me who you are." Jacob collected his thoughts, eyes roving over the city lights outside. "I was once a lecturer," he finally began, words deliberate and raw. "Economics, at the university." His pause was heavy, but Monica stayed silent, encouraging him simply by listening. "Lost my wife to cancer. I couldn't save her, or myself. The grief took everything. I lost my job, my home, my bearing." His words echoed through the room, as honest and fragile as spun glass. He spoke of lonely nights spent under overpasses, of the slow erasure of dignity, how friends vanished, how hope thinned and finally snapped. Yet in Monica's presence, Jacob felt his pain soften, the sharpness of memory dulled by her listening. She rested her hand on his without thinking. It was warm and alive. "I wasn't always this way," Jacob whispered. Monica smiled, deep compassion etched in her eyes. "I never doubted it for a moment." Dawn on Victoria Island brought the first hints of change. Monica had, true to her word, reached out to a discreet network of business colleagues and friends. Within hours, the city's most trusted stylist arrived with tailored suits. Therapists and counselors quietly offered their services, if Jacob should want them. Yet Monica orchestrated none of this with arrogance or spectacle. Every step she took was careful, crafted to honor the man within, not just his appearance. Jacob tried on the suits, marveling at their cut and comfort. He gazed at himself in the mirror, struggling to reconcile this version of himself with the man who yesterday slept beside empty crates. Monica's encouragement was never patronizing. She laughed with him, not at him. When he faltered, she reminded him, "You survived. You are strong." Gradually, Jacob emerged from trauma's shadow. He accompanied Monica on walks near the ocean, learning to love the scent of salt and possibility. Together, they planned what the next chapter could look like. Monica, though fierce in business, was tender here. She listened as Jacob dreamed for the future, exploring ideas that he once thought had died with his past. While their story quickly became the whisper on every tongue in Lagos, for Monica and Jacob, it remained, above all, a story of two souls daring to build something wholly new, no matter how unlikely. As news of their engagement spread, public fascination morphed, predictably, into skepticism and prying. The tabloids speculated in breathless headlines. Social media thundered. Some praised Monica's compassion. Others hurled cruel accusations or dismissed Jacob as a project or an opportunist. Paparazzi lurked outside Monica's residence, eager to snap proof of a fairy tale, or more preferably, a scandal. Inside their sanctuary, Monica sat with Jacob, scrolling through the barrage of online comments. She caught his look, part hurt, part resignation. "They don't understand," Monica said, squeezing his hand. "But the truth isn't for them, it's for us." Jacob nodded, but the ghosts of shame clung stubbornly. Monica, sensing his discomfort, encouraged him to write a letter, a manifesto of sorts. In heartfelt words, he described the pain and grace found in redemption. He spoke of Monica not as a savior, but as a woman courageous enough to love what she truly saw. Their unity became more than gossip. It grew into a symbol of possibility. Organizations that had once ignored Monica's requests now reached out, inspired by the visible, vulnerable way she wielded her influence. Monica and Jacob began speaking not just about love, but about second chances, transforming the media circus into a dialogue about grace. The wedding was simple, intentionally so. Monica and Jacob chose their closest friends, a modest seaside chapel, and vows handwritten in trembling script. There was no media allowed, only the gentle hush of waves, the smell of salt, the promise of new beginnings. As Monica approached the altar, her eyes never left Jacob's. He, in turn, stood tall and proud, every inch the dignified, loving man Monica had believed him to be. The ceremony passed in a blur of laughter and tears, the exchange of rings marking not just their commitment, but the miracle that hope and radical kindness can bring. Long after the guests departed, for Jacob, it meant reclaiming life, dignity, and the capacity to hope. Their story, whispered first outside a supermarket, was now a beacon across a city, and quietly a promise that no one is ever truly lost. Days after the wedding, Monica and Jacob awoke in the embrace of gentle sunlight pouring through wide, ocean-facing windows. There was a new stillness between them, one shaped by uncertainty and the fragile beauty of beginning again. For Jacob, normal routines felt alien. Coffee prepared ahead of time, a wardrobe organized by color, the casual luxury of heated bathroom tiles. Each moment was surreal, a tiny revolution against the gritty habits of survival. Monica saw Jacob's hesitation and met it with patience, remembering that healing does not follow a linear path. She led by gentle example, inviting him to join her for meditative walks along the shore, pointing out the subtle grace in daily acts. Sometimes Jacob retreated into memory, his mind drifting back to echoing lecture halls and the tremulous love he once shared with his late wife, Miriam. He spoke of her with reverence, and though a shadow crossed Monica's face, it was never jealousy, only awe for the depth of his heart. Lessons bloom. Together, they learned the art of presence. Monica, who knew the world of power and influence, began to slow down, relishing the peace found in Jacob's company. She discovered an unexpected delight in ordinary things, a sloppy pancake breakfast, the lilt of Jacob's laughter as he recounted a childhood prank, the way he gazed out at the horizon as if searching for lost worlds. Jacob, meanwhile, grappled with the weight of choice. For so long, his life had been dominated by chance and abandonment. Now, he was learning that to love was itself an act of will, revised and reaffirmed each day. Monica never pressured him. She allowed space for mourning and for renewal, unwilling to demand transformation before he was ready. Lessons bloom. In her, Jacob found not just encouragement, but the steadying force of belief. The two were, in every sense, learning to breathe again. And with each new morning, their faith in each other grew stronger, thicker, woven through with hope, both tentative and resilient. It wasn't long before the outside world attempted to intrude on their fragile happiness. Monica, ever the pragmatist, returned cautiously to her empire at MTech. Her boardroom, a sphere of glass and quick wit, now felt less alluring in contrast to the peace she'd discovered at home. But the world of technology waits on no one. Shareholders and executives demanded her full attention. Jacob, meanwhile, found himself searching for purpose. Monica offered him opportunities, whether a place on her advisory team, support for his own passion projects, even connections to the university where he'd once inspired students. Jacob struggled, wanting neither to be Monica's pet project nor helpless in the tidal current of her success. Days became labyrinths of self-doubt, punctuated by lonely hours. The test of change was thus not in wealth nor comfort, but in identity. Jacob needed to prove, above all, to himself that his renewal was not dependent upon Monica's benevolence, but on his own grit and vision. Monica confronted this challenge with compassion, encouraging Jacob not with platitudes, but with real chance. A teaching gig at a local college, a scholarship foundation in Miriam's honor. Each triumph, however small, became a step toward autonomy. Monica watched as Jacob started to smile more easily, his posture confidence, the cadence of his words rich with thought. He was reclaiming the dignity that hardship had chipped away, and Monica, seeing this, felt her love for him multiply in unexpected ways. This segment marked a critical point for both. Monica learned to let go, to trust Jacob's journey. Jacob learned to ask for help, to lean without shame, and to shape a life he could proudly call his own. Life in the spotlight is rarely gentle, and soon Monica and Jacob were forced to navigate the harsh glare of celebrity. Invitations poured in, chart-topping talk shows, magazine features, even a documentary proposal. Each request came loaded with expectation. A polished fairy tale, the neat packaging of struggle and triumph for mass consumption. Monica instinctively shielded Jacob from the most predatory of these invitations. "We have nothing to prove," she told him, "unless it's to ourselves." Jacob, however, recognized the potential for good if their story could inspire others living in shadows. Might it be worth the discomfort? They agreed to share their story on their terms. The television interview they eventually accepted was candid and moving. Monica and Jacob spoke not only of luck and love, but of pain, vulnerability, and the slow, uncertain business of recovery. Jacob described his years on the street with raw honesty, refusing to romanticize nor trivialize the suffering he had endured. Monica, for her part, highlighted the necessity of empathy, how true leadership required seeing and elevating those whom society ignored. The segment touched millions. Letters began flowing in from across Nigeria, from women emboldened to demand respect, from men desperate for another chance, from children dreaming of innovation and compassion. Monica and Jacob found themselves at the heart of a movement, one bigger than themselves, yet also deeply personal. But with influence came backlash. Critics accused them of exploitation, of manufacturing hope for profit. The scrutiny stung. But Monica and Jacob learned to let kindness be their shield. Their story, they realized, was never really about fame, but about the courage to try and the freedom in vulnerability. Lessons bloom. For Monica and Jacob, stability was a daily negotiation. Jacob, supported by Monica, but independent in spirit, thrived in his new teaching role. He mentored students with a rare intensity, driven by lived experience, always reminding them that dignity exists even in suffering. Monica, meanwhile, found herself drawing inspiration from Jacob's resilience as she tackled fresh challenges at MTech, a new product launch, ethical partnerships, work that aligned with the compassion she'd discovered in herself. Their home, once simply a space of luxury, commenced to feel like sanctuary. Monica's old friends visited with curiosity and growing respect. Jacob's world, once restricted by isolation, blossomed into one of genuine connection, a network of allies and admirers who saw him as more than a headline. Yet the future remained uncharted territory. There were fears, of course. Would Jacob's trauma resurface? Could Monica's business weather the scrutiny that came with her unorthodox choices? Would both find fulfillment in the rapidly shifting landscape of love, career, and public expectation? Instead of shying from these questions, Monica and Jacob embraced them, daring to step into uncertainty together. Lessons bloom. Their relationship, forged in turbulence, found its strength in honesty, not perfection. With time, Monica and Jacob's union matured into something greater than romance, a partnership aimed at building legacy. Together, they established the Miriam Foundation, named for Jacob's late wife. The foundation focused on education and empowerment for those living on the margins, offering scholarships to students from backgrounds like Jacob's, funding tech startups led by underprivileged Nigerians, providing counseling and practical support for those whose stories echoed Jacob's journey. Their partnership drew the admiration of local and international leaders. Monica spoke at conferences about leadership and compassion. Jacob's lectures became standing-room-only affairs, his story a testament to redemption and the power of second chances. The Miriam Foundation, modest at first, grew into a force in Nigeria's philanthropic landscape. At home, life settled into a gentle rhythm. Monica and Jacob discovered that vulnerability itself could be a type of wealth, one that, shared wisely, multiplies rather than depletes. Every evening, as they sat together, watching the sun sink behind Lagos, they reminded themselves that their story was neither finished nor unique. but it was proof, undeniable and shining, that courage and kindness can change everything. As their foundation's work rippled outward, Monica and Jacob saw hope blooming in unexpected places. The Nigerian Foundation funded young computer whizzes who coded late into the night from internet cafes, offered housing support for families facing eviction, and quietly paid for school shoes, uniforms, and tablets for children who had only ever known lack. Invitations to speak arrived from distant cities and distant countries. Their story, living proof that dignity and opportunity could reach across class and circumstance, found a place in university classrooms and boardroom strategy meetings. Jacob took on more responsibilities, mentoring not only future economists, but also ex-offenders, war widows, and young men teetering on the edge of despair. He found joy in this calling, realizing that his own restoration fueled others. Monica, meanwhile, discovered new strength. Her work at M-Tech gained moral urgency. She funded incubators, demanded that boards hire without discrimination, and pushed for mental health programs within her company. One evening after a long day, Monica and Jacob sat on their quiet patio, watching dusk spill over the city. "We're changing things," Jacob whispered, his hand warm in Monica's. She squeezed his fingers and grinned, her heart full. "We're just getting started." They made a pilgrimage together, years after that fateful meeting, to the sidewalk outside the Super Save supermarket. The same vendors sold fruit and cheap electronics. The same rush of vehicles scattered dust across the pavement. Jacob, dressed in crisp white linen, found the exact spot where he'd sat, invisible to the world but not to Monica. Monica knelt down beside him, not as she had in proposal, but as a friend and partner, honoring the ground where everything changed. They spoke quietly to the street children, shared their foundation's cards with hopeful mothers, and offered to listen to anyone who had a story to tell. For Jacob, the memory was bittersweet. He lingered, recalling the feelings of emptiness, then the shock, then the dawning belief. Now, as he looked at Monica, he saw not a rescuer, but a kindred spirit and companion. Their story had begun surrounded by witnesses. Now, in returning to the scene, they committed to bearing witness for others. Before leaving, Jacob pressed a small folded note into the palm of a shivering boy, telling him, "Never give up on the world noticing you. Someone will." Monica smiled, knowing that hope, once sparked, could ignite a future. As the years unfurled, the Monica-Jacob story seeded change far beyond their immediate reach. Local businesses began hiring people with untidy pasts. University scholarships popped up for street scholars. And politicians, alert to the foundation's popularity, championed social safety nets and reforms for the homeless. The taboo around discussing trauma softened. Churches and mosques invited Monica and Jacob to speak not about miracles, but about the slow, patient effort of restoration. Jacob became comfortable in his public role, but never let it feed his pride. When students asked about his time without shelter, he admitted to fear and loneliness, reminding people that poverty was not a flaw, but a circumstance. Monica remained steadfast, a strategist, a mentor, a woman who refused to see Jacob as anything less than her equal. In quiet moments, Monica and Jacob would discuss the harvest of their joint work, looking through photos of young graduates and successful startups. "You gave me the chance to believe in myself," Jacob told her one evening at their foundation's gala. Monica replied, eyes glistening, "You taught me how to see the true value in everyone. That's our legacy." Marriage and philanthropy did not protect Monica and Jacob from pain. Scandals erupted, programs failed, and at times, Jacob struggled with guilt or the sudden resurgence of shame. Monica faced business betrayals and the loneliness that came with leadership. At these moments, they returned to the rituals of their love. Slow mornings, shared jokes, and honest conversation. Jacob learned to ask for forgiveness, to cry without embarrassment, to receive care without suspicion. Monica learned that ambition could be amplified by partnership, and that vulnerability did not drain her strength, but deepened it. Therapy became a regular appointment for them, a place to honor wounds that might otherwise fester. Their marriage, never painted as perfect, endured by their shared commitment to truth and growth. Together, they wove a relationship built on resilience, not the easy triumph depicted by headlines, but the hard-won grace of choosing each other every day. As the years settled into rhythm, Monica and Jacob found themselves more content than they could have ever imagined. Their influence in Lagos was profound, but it was their quiet moments together that brought the most joy. Slow walks after rain, long talks about new dreams, laughter echoing against the city skyline. Children they helped, once silent and small, now ran up to greet them, eager and proud. Jacob never let go of the well-worn bag he'd carried all those years ago, keeping it in a special drawer as a symbol. Monica often paused to reflect on the audacity of hope, the courage to stop, to see, and to dare. If she hadn't knelt on that dusty pavement, what stories would have remained unwritten? On their anniversary, Monica and Jacob sat by the ocean, the breeze soft and forgiving. Monica turned to Jacob, her eyes gentle. "Our real wealth is in what we dared to imagine for each other," she said. Jacob smiled, his voice steady. "And what we keep daring for everyone else." Their story, born from a single unexpected moment outside a busy supermarket, lived on, not as a legend, but as living proof. In the city where dreams collide and rise, Monica and Jacob's legacy was not finished. It remained a beacon, a promise that hope, kindness, and love can change the world, one brave act at a time.